Good morning, everyone. This is Miss Wicked Kitty, aka Paradox, and I just wanted to talk briefly about my current AMD FX8350 build. I just recently acquired the Corsair Carbide Series SPEC 02 mid-tower chassis in black with red accents, and I just wanted to share my specifications and what my current build looks like. I don't have a camera per se that I can actually do some a better capturing for what I'm going to share with you, but thus this slideshows of pictures might represent what I currently have just as good. So here are some pictures of what the chassis looks like. Here's the top view with the you can use two 120 millimeter fans for exhaust or intake, depending on how you set it up. Part of the front panel. Here is the front I/O, if you want to call it that. Has the from left to right power, USB 3.0, headset, hard drive activity live microphone, USB 3.0, and reset button. On the side panel, on the left side behind the motherboard tray, it doesn't have much room for cable management, but it does have a bulge that might give you a little bit of leeway for cable management if you're using a modular PSU. Here's the rear of the case. You can use a 120 or 80 millimeter exhaust fan. It has some water cooling grommets if you want to use that. Your PCI expansion slots, PCU, and it's pretty basic. It's what I would call a what's the word I'm looking for? I do not want to say cheap, but it's an affordable mid-tower case if you're on a budget, and it has a very nice window to be able to see your components inside your build. So it has your two 5 1/4 inch base for optical or fan, uh, however you want to call it, for controlling your fans. Behind the front panel, there's a little bit of a mesh for keeping some of the dust out, but not much there to say. uh, Besides that, when I remove the front panel, you can see there your 5 1/4 in the inside of your 5 1/4 inch base, and they include a 120 millimeter red LED fan. You can use two 140 millimeter fans for the front of the case as well. Here's the interior of the case. There's the drive bay, your motherboard tray, uh, your optical base again, and the fans position for the front intake. Um, the case, the included accessories came inside one of the hard drive bays, and there was not really much to the accessories, with the exception of some cable tie downs, mounting screws, and one additional motherboard standoff, because all the other ones are built into the case. So that was a good, you know, good, because I really don't care too much for installing motherboard standoffs. And here is the area where you will install your CPU, either up or facing down, whichever way you prefer. If you have it on the floor like I do right now, I have my PSU with the fan facing up. And here you can see most of the motherboard standoffs are built into the case, and here's an option in case you're using a micro ATX or ATX motherboard for installing that extra standoff that came with your case accessories. Now I'm going to be removing the drive bay. So right to the right side, there's a screw there. I had to start removing that screw to start on installing the drive bay that came with the case, because I wanted to eventually use an all-in-one enclosed water cooler. And you also had to remove these bottom screws right there, which are showing the case feet. Right around the case feet, there's some screws. Those are the ones that partially mount the hard drive bay. There's also a mesh at the bottom of the case for your PSU in case you decide to install it with the fan facing down. It's a very paper thin. It's not removable and it's not magnetic. It's just paper thin, and it's not held into place. What I didn't like about the case is once you remove the screws, for in some areas, the paint kind of chipped a little. It was probably caused because of over tightening, because other than that, the paint throughout the case looks just fine. And also right along the side and the back of the drive bay, there's some screws. You have to remove those also when you're removing the drive bay, just so you know, just in case you decide to try to yank it off like I did. And here it is after I removed the drive bay to give room to possibly installing an all-enclosed water cooler with the right along the front intake fan. So I might do a push-pull. So we'll see how that goes. Um, Initially installed some AF 140 fans right here. That they should be coming up pretty shortly. Because if I have the choice of using 140s, well, would I install 120s? But I had to kind of push, almost force it in a little bit for that top 140 to go in. And another thing also, if I use the 140s, I will not have room to install a water cooling. Since I removed the dry bay, I used what do you call it? I forgot the name of it, but I have my hard drives installed in where the optical bays go. I just used a bracket that goes from 5 1/4 to 2.5. I have my SSD and I have a 2.5-inch HDD. No, so it's a Corsair 240 gigabyte Neutron. The other one is a Western Digital 750 gigabyte. They're both 2.5-inch, of course. Now, here is my power supply. Yes, it's an EVGA because I had that from a lot of these parts are from previous builds. It's a 750 watt fully modular, which made it very easy for cable management. Since there's very limited cable management space in this case. I had the fans facing up again because currently I don't have a desk and my computer is sitting on the floor and the floor is carpeted, so I don't want it to suck up anything from the carpet up the case. That would not be good. Oh, up the PSU. Here, just some a view of the cables, and those are part of the front cables, the USB 3.0 and audio, which I would not be using. There's no need for that. And your hard drive activity, LED power, and reset connections from the front of the case. Everything is black and sleeve, so even though it's budget case, that was good that everything was black. I didn't want any other colors showing. Now, the bad thing about this case, when you use an ATX motherboard, the CPU, the cutout for the 8-pin power connector is going to be blocked. So you have to be very inventive routing that cable. I had to actually route it on the inside, up and around the motherboard. So it might be more friendly toward a micro ATX motherboard than an ATX motherboard, but still you can use an ATX motherboard in this case. You can see there I've installed the 120 millimeter fans. The cutouts, they don't have rubber grommets. They're just rounded, so you will not cut yourself, or cables will not get damaged. Here's another look again at the 120 millimeter rose wheel. These are rose wheel fans, they're red and black, that I installed, or I chose to go with for hopefully upgrading later on to 120 millimeter or 240 all-in-one enclosed water cooling, maybe a H100i or a Cooler Master. I'm not quite sure which one I'm going to go with yet, but that's later on down the road. I'm not really concerned into that right now. And those fans, I had them from a previous build, which is good because they go along with my Rosewheel Z1 CPU cooler that I have installed on my motherboard right now. They all blend in. There's the aesthetics of it that looks awesome. I'm really enjoying my case so far. It keeps the temperatures are very well, considering that I'm using some CPU cooler that's considered to be a little bit above the stock one. Cable management, I can't complain since I have a fully modular PSU. I was able to get some most of the cables behind the motherboard tray, even though there's not that much room. But because the panel have a little bit of leeway in that bulge, that it just closed right up. I didn't have to force it in. Now, I will, however, say that when you're using an ATX motherboard on this case, you might want to consider that you might not have room to install 120 millimeter fans on the top of the case because depending on your CPU cooler, it would there would not be enough room for the 120 millimeter fans, and also the height of your RAM. So take that into consideration. Besides that, I really like this case. It's budget oriented and fun to build with. And thanks for watching.